What's up, y'all? How's it going? I'm gonna talk today about the kids post, the kids one with the Looney Tunes, SpongeBob, Beavis and Butthead, iCarly. I know that was a lot. I kind of conflated two two lectures together. I usually do the Beavis, or sorry, the Bugs Bunny and the SpongeBob together, and then another day I'll do the Beavis and Butthead iCarly. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that I want to get to. So I'll try to do it really quickly. So first of all, the Bugs Bunny SpongeBob thing. My biggest, I know I prefaced in the intro that I grew up with Bugs Bunny, you grew up with SpongeBob, and so why am I so clearly better than you? Like, that's, I'm kidding, obviously. Um, I'm not better than you. But I think each show reflects, certainly reflects um, a different generational personality almost. And some of you kind of touched on it. Um, let's see who did. Kaylee talking about liking Bugs Bunny because he's kind of a smartass. That was the thing. Like Bugs Bunny was a character based on like all these kind of Brooklyn kind of like street kids basically. He had like Groucho Marx in him and this like he kind of had a Brooklyn accent type of thing and he was just smarter than everybody else and he knew it, right? Um, so Bugs as smartass as Kaylee said, and then Jeff was talking about he looked at Bugs as cool and clever. And these are all these are all adjectives you would not use to describe SpongeBob. SpongeBob is not cool in any way. He's almost the opposite of it, right? He's naive. He's not a nerd, but he's just like he's square. Get it? Because square pants. Um, so this idea, there's something about that. Like I grew up with that, the smartass, the cynic, and I'm Gen X, by the way. I'm not a boomer. Not everybody over the age of 35 is a boomer. Um, and then, and some of you talked about the content of it, like the Roman Empire stuff. Like, none of it is uh, pandering. I think that's the fundamental difference that I see between the two, right? And I'll get to a point. You guys kind of made my point for me in your comments. There's no pandering in Bugs Bunny. He's just doing his thing, and it's funny and it's clever and it's sarcastic and all these kinds of things. And yeah, they use this classical music score, which is supposed to make people smarter, kids smarter or something. I don't know. I don't have the data on that. And the Roman Empire and different references that kids wouldn't get unless they were sort of really interested in finding that out. And then you watch that SpongeBob episode and you see SpongeBob just sort of like he's obviously overdoing this ripped pants thing. It's funny for a while, then it just gets kind of dumb, and then which would be fine. The problem I have with SpongeBob is the final scene. He and the other quote unquote losers get together, and what do? They sing a song called "Be True to Yourself." Like you don't have to try to like. It's the the pandering morality of a lot of the shows that you guys grew up with. And you guys know I'm not saying anything controversial by saying that your generation and generations prior not prior, since yours. They kind of have this. Someone talked about it being soft. Maybe it was Shay. I think it was Shay was talking about it. So I don't know what just happened. Stopped again. But anyway, um, I'm not saying anything crazy or that you haven't heard already. That the knock on your generation and generations since yours is you're soft. You're the entitlement generation, participation trophies, all that kind of bullshit. And that's whatever. But you see, like, SpongeBob is very reflective of that, like tele- telegraphing the moral and not letting the audience get the moral on their own, and kind of that cultural hand holding, where it's like, everybody's awesome and everybody's great and everybody's special and you can do whatever you want. Like, I'm Gen X. I never heard that. Like, this whole follow your dreams thing, kind of new. And it certainly wasn't my understanding of life. And Bugs kind of represents that. Like, it might sound ridiculous or sound like a stretch, but he represents that more than SpongeBob certainly does, right? So I'd be cool with that. I love SpongeBob, by the way. I'd be cool with that episode if it didn't have the sweeping moral at the end to make everybody feel okay about themselves, right? SpongeBob shows you through his perseverance and self-awareness and understanding that he's a good dude. You don't need this song that literally says what the episode's about. Like, that's what really gets up my ass. So, and there's part of me that thinks that SpongeBob, we talked about exaggeration to the point of realization. If you watched my last video, which not many of you did, but a part of me wants to believe that ending, the whole like pandering exaggeration of this, then we sang a song about how to be yourself, is SpongeBob, the people who make SpongeBob, it's their way of making fun of that trend in TV. But I don't know if they're that clever about it. So yeah, the whole Bugs and SpongeBob thing is just, it's an aesthetic that I've been trying to kind of connect or wrap my head around for a while now. And talking about it in this kind of way is generally helpful. So moving to Beavis and Butthead and iCarly, none of you really got to where I was hoping you would get, and it's not your fault. The whole quiet on the set, Dan Schneider, fucking creepy shit, um, has certainly tainted this discussion that I've been having over the last couple of years. And it's hard not to watch it and think about all his shows just differently, than certainly than you did as a kid. But the connection this is what I've been thinking about for the last probably 5 years, is what happened to parents on TV over the past, I don't know, like since the 80s. Like, the 80s was the golden era of the family sitcom, right? Nuclear family, mother, father, however many kids, and the parents drove the show, right? Like, The kids did crazy things. The parents just tried to get them on the right path, whatever it was. This wholesome sort of bubblegum thing, which is, it is what it is. But gradually you saw, especially for teenagers, like kids your age. Where's my notes? Ah, right here. Um, and iCarly, this is why I showed iCarly. iCarly is the pinnacle of all of this. It's like at some point, parents were this thing to this identity or ideal to be respected, to be looked up to be admired, to help guide kids, to help raise kids, right? And if you watch iCarly, there are no parents in this world, and these kids are wildly successful. Like, what? How is that possible? And what does that mean? Like, and it's, again, I said iCarly is representative of these kinds of shows. It's every show from your childhood, basically. Anything on Nickelodeon, except for like Good Luck Charlie, anything on Nickelodeon or Disney Channel from like the 2000s sort of fits in this category where the cat, and it ties in a little bit to the SpongeBob Bugs Bunny thing. The kids in all these shows are so special and so cool and so just sort of like exceptional that the parents become props in their lives, right? Think about Drake and Josh, right? Drake and Josh is, if the parents are in it, they're complete buffoons being made to look silly by Drake and or Josh. Usually Drake, because he's a rascal. Um, Drake and Josh, Ant Farm. A couple of you mentioned Zoe 101, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. I got my little list over here so I don't miss any. And oh, Victorious. Someone mentioned Victorious. I'm just like, parents are a joke, and kids are so exceptional. Like, they need special schools to like harness their specialness, right? Zoe 101 is like 10-year-olds going to college, basically. Victorious is this special performing arts school. Ant Farm is some super nerd school or whatever. Sweet Life, I don't even know what that is. So what is that? And like, just over the last year before Quiet on the Set came out, I started to think about it. It's like, well, what would a pedophile want more than to separate kids from parents, right? And I'm like, I cringe now thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I hope that's not why. But it's hard not to look at it that way. Like, that these shows were sort of, they were almost grooming kids in a way. It's super dark, and I apologize, but this is sort of what the ideas that I've gotten to went, because I've been talking about this with different classes for a few years now. It's like, oh shit, like that was the end game. Was like, normalize parents being sort of aloof or to be ignored or not present, right? Think about iCarly, okay? There's no parent. Spencer is the quote unquote parent, and he's as much a kid as anybody else. Like, that's part of the joke. And Sam's mother is gone, obviously. And then there is one parent in the show, Freddie's mom. And Freddie's mom, by all accounts, is a good mother. She cares about her kid, his well-being, where he is, taking care of him, all those things. And what is she in the show, though? To everyone in the show and everyone watching, she's a fucking joke. Like, they laugh at her. they make fun of Freddie. Oh, your mom's around? That's weird. Your mom loves you? Fuck her, dude. Like that kind of stuff is what I'm talking about. It's not just the fact that they don't have parents sort of as figures in most of these shows. It's that it's almost rubbing your nose in the fact that they don't have parents. Right? So one good parent shows up and everyone's like, eat shit, right? So what does Beavis and Butthead have? Oh, this is another thing. It builds this hubris in kids, and some of you mentioned this in your comments. Emma specifically, like the the sort of ease with which they gain this internet stardom, right? With their stupid fucking web show. The false reality that it could create for kids who are watching and be like, "Oh, I just have to do this." Um, and look how easy it is. Um, but listen to the theme song. The theme song is like sung by a sociopath. If you just listen to the words, right? Well, mostly I know you'll see somehow the world will change for me, right? It won't be none of my doing. The world will just change for me. Live life, breathe air. I know somehow I'm gonna get there. So like shit's just gonna happen and work out for me because I'm Carly and I have a web show. But that's a little off. And for like I don't know when they started the show, she was probably 12, right? So for a 12-year-old talking like that, but then what is it? How does it end? The refrain is leave it all to me. The 12-year-old, leave it all to me. I have it all figured out. I got all the answers. I'm good. I don't need any help from anybody. Leave it all to me. And you see it in the episode that I had you watch, the stakeout one. Like, they're just tampering with a criminal investigation because they know better than cops. They do in this case. But yeah, it's 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 mind numbing to me. Like that this was a huge trend. Now here's where Beavis and Butthead comes in. So you watch Beavis and Butthead, I hope, those couple clips. Like that used to be this was early 90s. So this is when I was like a senior, junior, senior in high school. And everybody always so funny and everybody loved it. It was this huge cultural thing. And actually just they're doing new episodes now if you want to check those out. But Beavis and Butthead have no parents, but it's a cautionary tale. Like this is the 90s. It was like this is what happens when parents aren't around. Kids are listless, they do stupid shit, they're stupid, they're just garbage on this. Yeah, they're just in this teenage wasteland as it were. So how did we go from that, right? If you take parents out of a kid's life, they just become these complete delinquents, right? With nothing better to do than play frog baseball or whatever it is. And they're just, I mean, again, everything. They're stupid, they're destructive, they're violent, they're all that shit. To no parents means this utopia. Like that's the disconnect that started me thinking about all of this stuff. Um, and it's I think it's interesting to watch those two things together, right? Because somewhere the messaging changed. Because I grew up like this was my youth was watching the Cosby Show and Family Ties and Growing Pains, like these really like iconic family sitcoms. And then when I was, you know, 17, 18 years old, it was Beavis and Butthead. But there was still that they were sort of cool and edgy, but there was the no parent thing. So like they were still preaching that to me. And then we go to, you know, you jump ahead not that long, you know, and now you have parents are they're props in kids' lives. Like that's and then Quiet on the Set comes out and you're like, "Oh shit." Like it's it like I said, it's dark. Um so that's that's my little tweener my iCarly theory. It wasn't even a theory. It was just like a question, like what's the end game here? And I think we kind of have the answer. And again, I'm not psyched about the answer if it's this whole Dan Schneider thing. Um, so somehow, yeah, I have all the lyrics like written down, but the big ones is just that idea that you don't need parents. That's just such an irresponsible thing to put out there. In addition to the things that you guys brought up, right? Um, Tyler, all of you basically brought up Quiet on the Set and like how that has affected the way you even watch those shows, right? I think it was at the end of the episode that you watched with the real kid like drawing faces on his toes and like they put that on at the end of the show after all this foot fetish shit came out. It's like it's just so bad. um Kaylee, Bugs, and Smartass, yes, I mentioned those. um bella Bella used the term relatable situations for iCarly. So what was relatable about this episode? The involving yourself in a criminal investigation when you're 13 years old that happened to you. Uh, I just, I guess parts are, maybe it's because I'm older. Like none of it's relatable. I feel like, and some of you kind of mentioned like Gibby. You know, Gibby takes so much shit. He's basically bullied. Sam bullies. You know, I mean, those aren't. Maybe those are relatable, um, but those aren't great examples of Sam and Freddie's relationship. Um, so I just I don't know if relatable is the right word. Um, maybe ridiculous. Um, Charlie brought up Beavis and Butthead's antics. That's what I mean. Like the first thing people would have said about Beavis and Butthead would be, "Oh, where's the parents?" Like they, no one says that. No one says that about anybody in all those shows that I listed before when they do stupid shit or they do something ridiculous. No one's like, "Where are the parents?" Beavis and Butthead would have been the first thing anybody said. Well, of course, they don't have parents. Like I think they have I think Beavis's mom is around, but not really. You know. Um, oh, this is what I was talking about. Jaden made this point for me with the Bugs Bunny slash SpongeBob thing. Um, Jaden said Bugs was always himself and didn't have, and then I said, didn't have to be told to be himself, right? She was saying that that's something that drew her to Bugs Bunny was he was always himself. You know, she didn't have to be told to be yourself to get from Bugs Bunny that being yourself is a good thing. Whereas SpongeBob the pendulum swings completely the other way. And it's like in case you didn't realize, kids, this episode's about being yourself. And be sure to do that, right? Um, so that made those comments were very reaffirming for me to see that, because that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Bugs and SpongeBob, they're totally different characters, but at their core, Bugs is inherently himself in spite of everything. And SpongeBob needs to sort of be told to be himself. And that's a fundamental difference. Chloe's the one who brought out Gibby and his treatment on the show, which is subpar. I'll say it. Subpar. Um, and then Shay was talking about Beavis and Butthead, and like there were tons of copycat Beavis and Butthead kids. It's like that Frog Baseball was literally the first Beavis and Butthead short, and of course, like the next day, there's all these reports of kids playing Frog Baseball, and there was another one later in the run where Beavis and Butthead set fire to their trailer or something, and then a kid did it. Like, um, so this stuff has real world impact. I feel like the newer shows um, are maybe more, I won't say subtle about it, but just like it's subversive, maybe. Um, so I know that was all over the place, but um, keep checking these out. Stay on top of it. Um, I've noticed of the 25 kids in the class, we have had 16 people commenting. So, pick it up. Just try to get in a routine and stay consistent, and we can keep doing this. Um, all right, I'll see you probably in a few days of another one of these. Peace.